Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajacharya Astotra Satat Sistema, this is divine grace. His confounded Acharya Srila Abhacharya Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajacharya Astotra Satat Sistema, this is divine grace. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavina Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridasa Kaur Ki Jai. Prem Si Kahav Si Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Si Advaita Gadadhara Si Vasari Si Gaura Bhaktabinda Ki Jai. Asisi Radha Krishna Gopal Gopinath Syamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Si Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Si Mayapanavadip Dham Ki Jai. Si Jagannathpuri Dham Ki Jai. Ayodhya Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Sumati Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vena Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to Sisi Gaura and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasa Tato Jaya Mudirayat Nasta Payes Vabhadesu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavaiti Naistiki. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20. Title of this chapter is Lord Vishnu's Appearance in the Sacrificial Arena. How many of you have read the Bhagavatam? Ladies? I have read the Bhagavatam. If even it's just one canto you've read, a show by raising your hand. And the men, I've read the Bhagavatam. If even it's just only one canto. Yeah. Thank you. So the idea is that this is an ashram. It's not another mandir or another church or another mosque or another place of worship. But it's a mandir. It's an ashram. Ashram is a place where spiritual cultivation is it's encouraged. In other words, cultivation implies, it's like you go to the farm, you are, most people don't know even about farming, so that's not an appropriate example. But, the point is that, say you go to college, you have to rehearse, you have to learn the concepts and theories that you've been taught by the professor. And that rehearsal, constant learning, practicing what the professor has taught you, will enable you to become very much abreast with the concepts and constructs. It makes you very familiar with it because you've been practicing it. And so during the exam, it becomes easy to recall what you've been practicing. So, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Prabhupada designed it as a place for learning and practicing Krishna consciousness. So, I remember when in the temple where I joined, every morning we use 1 hour. Everybody must read in temple room. Boys sit on one side, ladies sit on one side. You must read for 1 hour. Whatever you want to read. And that way people are conversant with the philosophy and they're able to defend what they are practicing. If people don't read the books, and Prabhupada very much emphasized for us to distribute his books, another emphasis he made was also that if we don't understand the content of the books, how are we going to explain it to somebody? You give a book to someone and then they ask you, what is the content of this? And then you tell the person what? You can summarize the content of that book. So we need to read the books. And reading the books also helps us to deepen our faith in Prabhupada, deepen our faith in Krishna. So that if someone does something funny to you, you don't get overwhelmed with anxiety and then you abandon Krishna. We are individuals and we are all trying to be together to practice Krishna consciousness. So collectively and individually, people have to culture it and to test what they have learned. The test will come, whether we like it or not. The test comes, it's like, once I was listening to one guy yesterday, and he said, we have to create our boundaries, enforce the boundaries, and we have to test it. So that's very appropriate to us because we're here studying, learning, practicing Krishna consciousness. And then we will also be tested. And the test is at the time of death. And Krishna already, mentioned about what the exam is going to look like. The content of the paper, of the exam, the questions, what it's going to look like. What did Krishna say? How this exam is going to look like? He said that in the Gita. Yeah, who remembers? We are all preparing for an exam, but Krishna has already given us a clue of what what is going to come during the exam. Yes, who remembers what Krishna says in the Gita? He's the one to set the exam. He already told us what. He already told us. What a wonderful teacher, Yes?
He said that he is deaf also?
Huh?
He said that he is deaf.
He's what?
Deaf.
Deaf.
This could be the exam.
That is just an awareness that death is Krishna. But the exam, what should happen? What is the content of the exam?
Remembering him
Remembering him, yeah.
at the end of
At the end of life. Yeah. So he categorically mentioned, and he gave a thesis on that. That if you don't remember him, you remember something else, you will attain that destination. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajate ante kalevaram. So it's giving us some clue. The whole process of practicing Krishna consciousness, you wake up every day at 3:30 or 3 o'clock or 2:30. For what? To prepare for that ultimate objective. So, let's go to the text. Today is text 14. Today is the last section of Bhagavatam we're having with you. Tomorrow I'm leaving. So I thank the management for the opportunity given to me for the to do some service here by discussing the Shastra with the devotees. It's a service. And so a lot of people are interested in this type of service, especially preachers. But I'm not so much interested. And therefore I go to temples and you come to ask me, Maharaj, would you like to give Bhagavatam class tomorrow? I said no. So, yeah, but some people are really very enthused doing this type of service to the devotees. So when people come to your temple and they want to render this service, be there to receive the service. That's your job. The job of the resident devotees is to receive the service. People come, senior devotees they come, or preachers they come to render the service, to discuss the Shastra, be in attendance, because that's your job. Otherwise, why are you hanging out here? Just to hang out any community, in Simhachalam community, doesn't make you become a perfected soul. But nasta prayesu abhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya. This is the discussion of the Bhagavatam, the one who delivers, who leads the discussion, and those who participate in the discussion, those who hear. All of this culminate in service. So don't think this is too many things to do in this ISKCON every day, every time you have something to do. You have to go to Mangaratri, you have to go to Bhagavatam class, you have to go to Guru Puja. Too many rules. I remember in Calcutta, I met this lady, a Calcutta lady, very beautiful lady. So she went to Southern Europe to study, graduated with a master's degree. She married one European guy, very handsome, tall, huge guy. And so they visited one small temple that I used to visit in Calcutta. And that small temple is in the most expensive area of Calcutta. That area is called New Alipur. So this lady and the husband, with her son, young boy, they came to they visited that temple. She's a Bengali. So they visited that temple. So the devotees, they came to call me. Now, Maharaj, come and speak to this. We have some guests here. Come and speak to them. I said, why me? Well, you guys can speak to them. And he argued that, if I speak to them, it will be more weighty. So anyway, I was just teasing them, and then I subscribed to the idea. I went there. I was speaking to this lady. I said, you're so lucky you're a Bengali. Prabhupada is a Bengali. Our founder Chaya is a Bengali. He said, I know. She said, I know. I said, what's your name? She told me the name. I said, oh, you already initiated? She said, yes. I said, initiated where? By who? She called some type of Kula Acharya, some community Acharya or some family guru or something like that. Bengali is very common in India. So I said, well, this person is in the Parampara system? She was baffled, she didn't know what to say. And then she started telling me that, I was first visiting the temple from my village. I was first visiting your ISKCON temple. But too many rules. And that's why she wanted to take initiation from this guy, this person that, you don't need to do anything. No rules and regulations, okay? You're just giving initiation, no rules and regulations. Do whatever you like. It's called Yata Tata Panta. Anything goes. So our system is not like that. We have so many regimentations. And human beings, we are regimented, even sociologically speaking, materially speaking, because you don't go to the road and drive on one side that is illegal. You have to follow the rule. You drive on one side. So I told her that doesn't make any sense because you follow rules anyway. Because she's initiated and she's eating meat. Okay, that's the point. So, and our little temple, I don't know whether I mentioned this before, that small temple is like about 12 devotees. The president is a scientist, has a PhD. The vice president is a scientist, has a PhD. The chief pujari is a scientist, has a PhD. The chief cook is a scientist, has a PhD. But it's the smallest temple in Kolkata. Yeah, so the bottom line is that anyone's skills could be used in Krishna consciousness. And we are giving birth to children. We must make sure we train our children in school. You know why? I went to one community some time ago in America, a devotional community, one of the biggest devotional communities. And so someone told me a story, one devotee told me a story. I was discussing with him and I asked him, do they find students and professors coming? Because it's a hub of learning. There are so many universities and colleges in the area. I said, do you have some professors and students coming to visit, coming to the temple? He said, not often, because that sometimes some students came and they couldn't have someone to relate with. All the female devotees they met, they are like stark illiterates. So they couldn't relate with them, so they stopped coming. So that was sad, the sad news, because then we tend to undermine the principle that this is a place of learning, and so many people will come. If they can't align with people that they meet, they stop coming. They can make friends. Therefore, we having children, we should be responsible. We should not use proper philosophy or some Apa Sampradaya philosophy to kill the development of the child. we just keep our children here and we don't school them, they will not be useful. Because over 90% of the devotees will be married. Over 90%. And so if it's for someone to be married, they need to have skills. If they don't have skills, they'll be useless to themselves. You can tell your wife, hey, you know, we are devotees, okay? Why are you asking for this, asking for this, asking for this? We're Krishna Bhaktas. And you don't need to you don't need to ask for your basic needs. Krishna will take care. So we have to be careful not to kill the philosophy with irrelevant ideologies. Okay. Shreya praja palanam evaragno Yat samparaye sukritat sastamasam Hatanyata what is that? Okay. Hatanyata rita punya pajana Arakshita kara harugam ati. Shreya praja palanam evaragno. Yat samparaye sukritat sastamasam. Atanyata rita punya prajana Arakshita kara harugamati. Can someone try? Anyone, ladies to try? Ladies, anyone else to try? You are many there. Bolo. So word for word translation and purport by His Divine Grace is Confirmed Acharya, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Prabhupada Maharaj ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shreyaha, auspicious. Prajapalanam, ruling over the general mass of people. Ever? Certainly. Ragnaha? For the king. Yet? Because. Samparaye? In the next birth. Sukritat? From the pious activities. Sastam amsam. 1/6 part. Hatha. Collector. Anyata. Otherwise. Rita. Rita punyaha. Being bereft of the results of pious activities. Prajanam. Of the citizens. Arakshita. One who does not protect. Karaharaha. Tax collector. Agam. Sin. Ati. Receives or suffers. To give protection to the general mass of people who are citizens of the state is the prescribed occupational duty for a king. By acting in that way, the king in his next life shares 1/6 of the result of the pious activities of the citizens. But the king or executive head of state who simply collects taxes from the citizens but does not give them proper protection as human beings has the results of his own pious activities taken away by the citizens. And in exchange for his not giving protection, he becomes liable to punishment for the impious activities of his subjects. Please kindly respond, repeat. To give protection to the general mass of people who are citizens of the state is the prescribed occupational duty for a king. By acting in that way, the king in his next life shares 1/6 of the result of the pious activities of the citizens. But a king or executive head of state who simply collects taxes from the citizens but does not give them proper protection as human beings as a result of his own pious activities taken away by the citizens. And in exchange for his not giving protection, he becomes liable to punishment for the impious activities of his subjects. So let's listen with rapt attention to Prabhupada's purport. The question may be raised here that if everyone engaged in spiritual activities to attain salvation and became indifferent to the activities of the material world, then how could things as they are go on? And if things are to go on as they ought to, how can a head of state be indifferent to such activities? In answer to this question, the word Shreyaha, auspicious, is used here. The division of activities in society as arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was not blindly or accidentally created, as foolish people say. The Brahmana must do his duty properly, and the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and even the Sudra must do the same. And every one of them can achieve the highest perfection of life, liberation from this material bondage. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 18:45. Swe swe karmani abhirataha samsiddhim labate narha. By executing one's prescribed duties, one can attain the highest perfection. Lord Vishnu advised Maharaj Prithu that a king is not enjoined to give up his kingdom and the responsibility of protecting the prajas or citizens, to instead go away to the Himalayas for liberation. He can attain liberation while executing his royal duties. The royal duty or the duty of the head of state is to see that the prajas or the general mass of people are doing their respective duties for spiritual salvation. A secular state does not necessitate a king or head of state who is indifferent to the activities of the prajas or the citizens. In a modern state, the government has many rules and regulations for conducting the duties of the prajas. But the government neglects to see that the citizens advance in spiritual knowledge. If the government is careless in this matter, the citizens will act whimsically without any sense of God realization or spiritual life, and thus become entangled in sinful activities. An executive head should not be callous to the welfare of the general mass of people while he simply goes on collecting taxes. The king's real duty is to see that the citizens gradually become fully Krishna conscious. Krishna conscious means completely free from all sinful activities. As soon as there is a complete eradication of sinful activities in the state, then there will be no more war, pestilence, famine, or natural disturbances. This was actually prevailing during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira. If a king or head of the government is able to induce the citizens to become Krishna conscious, then he is worthy to rule over the mass of people. Otherwise, he has no right to levy taxes. If the king looks after the spiritual interests of the citizens, he can levy taxes without difficulties. In this way, both the subjects and the king will be happy during this life. And in the next life, the king will be able to share 1/6 of the pious activities of the citizens. Otherwise, by levying taxes on the sinful citizens, he will have to share the reactions of the sinful activities. This same principle can be applied to parents and spiritual masters as well. If parents simply give birth to children like cats and dogs, they cannot save their children from imminent death. They become responsible for the activities of their animalistic children. Lately, such children are turning into hippies. Similarly, if a spiritual master cannot direct his disciples to become free of sinful activities, he becomes responsible for their sinful acts. These subtle laws of nature are unknown to the present leaders of society. Since the leaders of society have a poor fund of knowledge, and the citizens in general are rogues and thieves, there cannot be an auspicious situation for human society. At the present moment, the whole world is full of such an incompatible combination of state and citizens, and therefore there is constant tension, war, and anxiety as inevitable result of such social conditions. Saksol Manitam, Yenitasmai, say Guru Bema, Sachetam and Ovistam, Staff Hetam, Yenabutali, Swayam Rupam, Kadamayam, the Dante Swapadantikam, Vande Si Krishna Chaitanya, Nityananda, Sahodato, Godotaya, Puspavanto, Chitu Chandu, Tamund, Vanchan Kalpatari Bicha, Kripasan, Patitanam, Pavan, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishnu Bhakti Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Saraswati for today. Gauravani Pacharine never says Swami Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasada Gaura Bhakti Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this text is the text and the purport are very self-explanatory. We are touching on some of these things that Prabhupada mentioned in the purport yesterday. So this is, the whole material life is full of responsibility and accountability. No one can eat the cake and have it. And so sometimes people think that social life is pretty, it's free. I mean, it's like in America, people think sex is free. But sex is not free. Because when you get a lady impregnated in America, you're responsible to cater for her and the pregnancy until the child is delivered. And then you have to take care of that child and the mother till when he's 18 years. So yes, you can have the sex anywhere, and it's advertised on billboards where to go and have fun. There's nothing wrong with that, I suppose. That is a matter of, culture. Now, the leadership of today takes cognizance of the fact that they don't need to really provide for the needs of the people. They make rules, laws, and again, I don't know the situation here, but like in America, even the Medicaid for the veterans and all these helpless people who don't have jobs and all those things, that is also being taken away. You die. So this is completely opposite of what a head of state, what the responsibilities of a head of state or a leader should be. And besides just taking care of the social needs, social economic needs, and healthcare needs of the citizens, there is the other aspect that is completely missing in modern day civilization. That is the spiritual knowledge. And not only in the government, but even in the schools, there is no department that is teaching people about spirituality. And so it makes life very difficult. And it sucks. And so Prabhupada used the word animalistic. Sometimes we think Prabhupada is harsh, he's too heavy. No, but he's seen it. The hippie life, when he came to America, he met the hippies. Hippies, most of the people who came to him were hippies. In 26 Second Avenue, there in New York, that the storefront there was the gathering place of these hippies. Then the beauty is that the spiritual culture transformed their lives. A number of people who come into our temples, they are not as bad, their lives are not as bad as the hippies. The hippies became transformed. Those who took to Krishna consciousness became transformed. And so, women say society is so debased that we also have a responsibility, not just to criticize society, but to do something to be able to create some transformation. So the king or the leader, now these days we don't have kings. I don't know whether you have kings here, but I think in the UK they have queen, so the monarchy is still there. But then the point is that it's a big responsibility to have that big position and get plenty of money every month with your family and all those stuff. It seems juicy, but it's a lot of responsibility, spiritual responsibility that comes with it. So here, it is clearly mentioned that the king, if he is able to protect the citizens, that the protection is not just from military invasion, but also to give them social protection, economic protection. And if the citizens are taken care of properly, along with the induction of spiritual knowledge, in other words, both things have to go side by side. Yes, the king or the leader must provide for the needs of the citizens who are working, who are paying taxes to the leader, or paying taxes to the government. And taxes are pretty heavy in America. And the system is such that, there is, if you pay all of these taxes, at some point in time when you retire, you start receiving retirement benefits. If you don't pay taxes, you don't receive any goddamn retirement benefits. And so people may complain that they are paying taxes, but also those who are paying the taxes, they get a benefit. When they're getting old and they're pushed out from their own mansions and to go and live in old people's homes, at least they have something they're banking on. But even if the retirement benefits are even no longer there is no longer Medicaid, there is, all of these things, social benefits, the social benefits of people are being ripped off. So what type of rulership is that? Not to speak of the deficiency in spiritual knowledge. So we find, if you take this, if you analyze this situation very carefully, you find that the modern day government, they are not meeting up with their responsibility. If you have in the government here, that they're implanting in people spirituality, I don't think so. They're teaching people, see, this is the purpose of life. Yes, you do your professional development, but this is the purpose of life. And you have to do this and this to get along on the two rails. This is also prescribed by Srila Vasudeva in the Upanishad text 11. People recite Upanishad all the time, but the content is not properly comprehended. And then, It boils down to a system of parrotology. Like the parrots, they read, the parrots, they can repeat something very nicely, and then they may not even understand. So, what Prabhupada is mentioning in this purport, and this main text also by the author, Lord Vishnu himself, is very relevant to modern day society. And Prabhupada uses this text to address our problems. And Prabhupada, it doesn't simply give some abstract purpose. He uses purpose to address everyday reality, everyday problems. So here's a typical example. A Prabhupada is problem-solving oriented. It's like a management scientist. They're problem-solving oriented. They don't just talk hogwash and get away. So Prabhupada is addressing a problem here. The modern system of government is not meeting up with its expectations, with their required job description. You want to get a job, they give you the job description, the things you need to do on the job. So this is the job description of a leader, to give protection to their subjects, even for parents and the spiritual master. And so if someone is not ready to give protection to their dependents, why take that responsibility? Why embark on that journey? And so we have a big responsibility being human beings. The dogs and pigs and hogs, they don't have any responsibility because they are not human beings. But society is so debased that because of the deficiency of spiritual information culture, because of the deficiency of spiritual knowledge, everything is going bizarre. Everything is going topsy-turvy. And except people in government are instilled with Krishna consciousness, how are they going to understand this stuff? I remember 11 years ago I was in the Balkans, in Croatia, and at a temple at that time, one new devotee at the time, he was just coming to the temple, he came to meet me with some politicians. And he said he's trying to vie for Congress. He's trying to go to vie for political office to go to Congress. And so I said we should pray for him. I think later, at one time I was very active on Facebook, so he contacted me on Facebook. He already he won that election, so he became a member of Congress in Croatia. How you call those people in parliament in Croatia? Or you're too detached, you don't know what takes place in the country. Sometimes the devotees are so detached, they don't know what is going on with the government, how the country is ruled or whatever, the different arms of government, they don't really care. They care only about Krishna, which is also good for the devotees. So this devotee, he wrote me, and what he was asking for, they have a debate in Parliament on abortion. And so he asked for some backup, some reference, what to, press forward about this, how the government should not encourage abortion, the consequences and all these things. And so we provided him with the Bhagavatam resource on the, on how right from the time of conception, the soul is inseminated in, and the life is already there. Once there is, even it's just 1 day conception, there is already life. So by the time you kill, you're bearing some basic, very serious consequences. So he used that to be able to advance his argument in parliament. I don't know what the outcome was or is. In Croatia, abortion is allowed, is authorized? Okay. Yeah, maybe he couldn't win because if it's just only one devotee, how much can you do? Yeah, so these things are going on, and the government, they don't know. We may blame them, but they don't know their left and right. They just attain power to be able to get distinction, fame, and adoration, to get money. And so this is the way society should be ruled. And not only societies, but all of our dependents, we have to be responsible. You have a child, it means you have to take that child back home, back to God. I remember one devotee, she was trying to get married to somebody. And then the mother came to ask me. I went to the state in Michigan, so the mother came to ask me. The mother actually and the daughter, they were helping to serve. They were cooking for me. So one day the mother said she wants to discuss with me. So we were talking. And then she asked me about this guy who the girl said she was interested to marry. So she asked me about that devotee. And so I told him all the good things. You know, devotees will tell good things about people. So I told her all the good things about that devotee, about how the father was a governor and all this. He came from a very wealthy family and all this stuff. And then you know what she told me? She said, Maharaj, it's not about money only. Can this boy take my daughter back home, back to Godhead? She asked me. This is not Puranic story. You know what? The girl at that time, she was doing a PhD. She's finished. She's a professor now. So the mother asked me that. I wouldn't tell lies. So that was the end of the conversation. So sometimes, on these days, some of the women are becoming very smart. You can't just go and talk flowery language to them, I love you, blah, 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 and then they fall for you. Question is, can you take me back home, back to God? So, husbands have responsibilities, spiritual masters have responsibility. And sometimes you travel around, you meet so many nice, wonderful devotees, but you meet people who are even initiated. And they are not married and they are living together. I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. And that is very scary. And for me, the good thing is that I have been warned by my own young disciples that they don't want many disciples. I remember one of my girls, one of my spiritual daughters, she was in school. When she was in university. She was 19. She wrote me to say, Maharaj, in my relationship with you, I don't want any middle person. Like a father, I don't want any middle person between myself and my father. I said, I hear you. I went to Buenos Aires in Argentina. And then one professor, he came to me, we were discussing, and he asked me, so, Maharaj, what are your conditions for accepting people as disciples? So when I told him my 5th commandment, and then my 5th rule, we have 4 rules in ISKCON, right? And then I told him my 5th rule. I have an additional rule. I told him the 5th rule, and he laughed. He said, oh, you don't want many disciples. I said, no, of course I don't want many disciples. So sometimes, people don't really care. And Prabhupada mentioned that when you give initiation, the sinful reactions of the disciple, spiritual master carries it. So it's not a joke. Someone is not ready, don't take initiation. Don't go for it. Idea is that you are ready to follow instructions of the spiritual master for the rest of your life. For ready to follow the instructions of Srila Prabhupada for the rest of your life. 4 regulatory principles. No boyfriend and girlfriend. This thing, that 4th regulatory principle is almost always being thrown away in most communities. I have seen that. I have traveled all over the world and I've seen it. So, that the sinful reactions, who carries it? You give a burden to your spiritual master. For parents, it's very deadly. As a parent, if you have, say, you have 3 girls, and people don't know this outside here. You have 3 girls, and the 3 of them, they commit 2 abortions each. Abortion is very common in most countries. Is it illegal here in Germany? So, in most countries, it's legal. So, you have 3 daughters who commit abortion, 2 abortions each. You are charged by Yamaraj as what? As a murderer, someone who has killed somebody. Because according to the implications of this text, and even Prabhupada mentioned in some purport elsewhere, that those responsible to take 1/6 of the reactions. I mentioned this yesterday. And so here it is mentioned that the king protects the citizens. The king benefits from the pious merit of the citizens. This is why the kings, the leaders, should be responsible. Because say you are a leader, say the president of this temple is able to protect and guide somebody until they become a perfected soul. You also partake part of that merit. And in the Chaitanya Bhagavad it is also mentioned the benefits of performing devotional service. Just by following the standard, the basic standard of devotional culture, following 4 regulatory principles and chanting 60 rounds every day and doing rendering service, you have 10 generations in your family who benefit from that. Of course, the Paramahamsas is over 20 generations. So, what we are doing is not something like a wishy-washy stuff. It is graphically described in the Shastras, the benefits of helping people tailor their lives in a Krishna conscious way, helping to protect your children, helping to protect your dependents, helping to protect members of the community. So that we don't have lackadaisical approach to these duties. The reason, this is basic because if you don't know the value of what you're doing, the importance of what you're doing, the results that will come out of what you're doing, you may have a lackadaisical approach to the duty. Then now we understand. This is why those who are in management, those who are heads of state, those who are parents or spiritual masters should properly guide against sinful involvement of their dependents, of their wards. Any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna. My question is regarding because many people, when you raise children in Krishna consciousness, one devotee told me it's a gamble.
Oh, really?
He told me it's a 20-year gamble.
Ah.
You invest 20 years of time trying to be a good example and raise them in Krishna consciousness, but at the end, he said, they do whatever they want.
Oh.
So, your...
My take on that.
huh?
My take on that.
Yes.
Now, thank you. Now, here is the whole deal. To produce Krishna conscious, produce children who will be raised in Krishna consciousness is not a joke. That's the most difficult thing. And it begins from the Jeden Samstag. I like telling this story. I had two of my young disciples, aspiring disciples. There are two of them. They are chiropractors, they are professionals, they have master's degrees in their field. Young couples. So they wanted to have a child. And then the wife came to me to ask me some details. Not knowing they have already gone to read the Bhagavad Samskara book, and then all of those details they are trying to implement. So I was shocked. I said, you've gone all this far to get all of these investigations done. She said, yes. And you see, one is expected. I remember during the first, prior to the first initiation in 26th Avenue in New York, so before the initiation ceremony, so some devotees were asking some questions, and one of them, I think it's Brahmananda Prabhu, former Brahmananda Swami, he asked that, so, because Papa was mentioning about how many rounds, devotees asked how many rounds they would chant, those who are to be initiated. Initiation was to take place. They don't know, they already have some, deep relationship with Prabhupada, deep connection with Prabhupada. Now Prabhupada says they have to be initiated. So they ask about their commitment. And so about number of rounds to chant, Prabhupada mentioned to them and all this stuff. Prabhupada initially said 64 rounds. They said, no, we cannot do that. And then Prabhupada brought it down to 32 rounds. They said, no, we cannot do that. And then Prabhupada said, minimum 16 rounds. And somebody asked the question, I think Brahmananda, if I'm not forgotten. This is there in Planting the Seed by Satsvarup Goswami, volume 1. I don't know whether it's volume 1, but Planting the Seed. And so this devotee asked Prabhupada, so when people are married, how many rounds should they chant to produce Krishna conscious child? Prabhupada said 50 rounds. And then he said, oh, better to just give it up. 50 rounds is not a joke. How many of us are chanting 16 rounds before sex? If you do that, the husband and wife, they do that, the child will be pucker. Child will be pucker. That's why I say, to be a grihasta and to be able to produce a child that will be raised in Krishna consciousness is very difficult. Then it becomes what the Prabhu told you, a gamble. Okay? If this system is not followed, everything else we were doing becomes like a gamble. Because you may force the child. I remember one of my friends, he has a PhD in economics in Washington, D.C. He told me his son was not born in Krishna consciousness. So, but then when his boy was small, they were all being forced to come to temple. And the boy is very, very smart, very, very, very intelligent. He got some scholarship admission to go to an Ivy League university. And so, when he started his program, he came back home for holidays one time, and he sat the father down, and he said, I'm not going with you to any temple anymore. He was not born a devotee. And sometimes people bring their kids to Krishna consciousness and they want to force them to do everything But when they get to that stage where, say, they enter college, then they back out. So that is a gamble that that person is telling you about. But if people follow the real system of procreation, it's a science. Producing Krishna conscious children is a science. Okay, suppose you marry somebody who can't even chant 16 rounds. Okay, and you chant 50 rounds before the sex. You're still going to produce a child who is going to mess you up. Because the other person is not chanting. The other person did not chant the 50 rounds before the meeting. These instructions are there. Those who are going to marriages or going to the Grihastha ashram should read the Bhagavad Samskara book. That is family planning by the Vedic system. Vedic system approach to family planning. And the rules are very rigorous. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna mentions about sex life for producing God-conscious children, or ethical sex life. It's not so easy. Let's be clear to ourselves. And sometimes someone is a brahmachari who says, "Oh, I'm sexually agitated, I better have to marry." It does not solve the problem. Because I've seen people who are married even with children in our movement, and then the man sees another woman and then runs away with the other woman. The other woman is also married with children in that other marriage. I have seen it. I've seen it even in India. So, except these senses are tamed, material world. Let's be clear to ourselves. This material world is not a juicy place. We try to squeeze some juice out of it, but the rules are just too much to get the juice. And then sometimes I've seen people who blame Krishna. I've been chanting for 20 years. Why did Krishna give me this type of child? Did you and your spouse chant 50 rounds before mating to invoke this soul? No. So why are you blaming Krishna? I mean, it's like someone is driving on the expressway and then all of a sudden he switched to the other lane without giving a signal. And then the person behind called the police. In America, you call the police, 5 minutes, the police is there. So the police comes and get him arrested. And he starts blaming the guy behind and blaming the police. This is what we do. We don't want to follow the rules, and then we blame it to Krishna. Krishna, you did this to me. Why? I've been serving in this movement for 15 years. Why you gave me this type of child? Yes, so I've seen all these blames in most places. So easy. It's called passing the buck. Blame it to somebody else. But the rules are there. They're very stringent. Now, you know what? This young couple who followed that system, the guy they gave birth to a very powerful girl. So the guy, he has his own company. The husband, he came to meet me last time. He said, "Maharaj, I want to have another child like my daughter." I said, "So you have to follow the same system." This is called hermeneutics, lived experience. I'm not speaking Puranic story when I was not there. So yeah, these are the rules of the game. If we endeavor in that respect, I know one of Jayapataka Swami's disciples, he told me, he's my friend, he told me, his son, Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, specifically gave him instructions what to do to produce that child. The child At 3 years old, they live far away from New Delhi temple. He works for a print media. 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 years old, wakes up the father. Papa, I want to go to temple. And when they come to temple, he'll be alert until Mangarati is over, until they leave the temple back home. I have seen it. 3 years old, 3 o'clock in the morning, I repeat, he wakes the father, Papa, I want to go to temple. So the father is forced to go and take a shower and get prepared to take the family, to take this boy and the older ones to the temple. I've seen it. The family is my friend. Husband and wife, they're my friends. So, and those kids, they're very, very promising. They're very, very packer. See, I know of also one other family, they moved from Michigan in Detroit to India. They have only one child, a girl. She's the best girl in the whole of Mayapur. No illicit connection. No boyfriend, no girlfriend. She's the best, toppest in class. Other parents, they use that girl as a reference when they're talking to their children. Man, the parents perform heavy austerity. Heavy one. To chant 50 rounds before sex means that they start chanting from 12 o'clock in the night till 5 o'clock when they will have to have the sex. It's not a joke. So these are some of the things that the system provides. And sometimes, when people ask questions like this, I'm just open. We'll talk it openly. If I don't know people who have this type of accomplishments, devotional accomplishment, well, I may not have a vivid answer to it, but I've seen. These are people who are under my care, and I've seen that. And these are people who are my friends, and I've seen that. I've seen their children. Yeah. Okay. It's already past 9. We may have to stop here now. If you have other questions, you can WhatsApp me. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
I want to hear the question of Govinda.
Just a short following question, because I've heard quite a few, sorry to give some negative examples, you gave very nice positive examples, but a few devotees, I forgot the name of this devotee, but he had a son who was obviously not very spiritually inclined, and he was telling the devotees, look, 64 rounds before we both did 60, still this child turned out like this.
Okay,
So,
maybe see, here is the deal.
And the point that he was, I think, trying to make was that the consciousness is also important.
Yeah, that's the point. It's not just mechanical. It's like someone says, I've chanted my 16 rounds. Beats, go away. Leave me alone. I'll finish my job. The chanting should not be done like a job. It should be done with love. I'm giving you a graphic example. I'm giving you a graphic example in the West, in London. I'm giving you also another graphic example in Delhi, in India. It's not. You see, if someone is chanting 16 rounds, for instance, and then they're still being sexually agitated so much, is he chanting purely? Or she's chanting purely? I doubt. So, the consciousness, yes, that's correct.
And some devotees said they chanted 64 rounds, then they were not able to have sex anymore. They were too spiritualized.
Yes, so see, the whole idea is that when you chant many rounds, you become so much saturated with Krishna consciousness, you become disinterested in sex.
what is the balance and how you can...
Balance for what?
To produce a child.
Yeah, the balance is that the husband and wife, they should have proper consciousness and chant with love and devotion, not mechanically. And so, with prayers, fervent prayers, it's not like a contract. You sign a contract with the government and then, hey, I've done the job, pay my money. No, it's not like that. It's done. These are things. We are praying to the Lord to engage us in some specific service. So, yeah, it's so easy for people to make some claims, and factually, if you chant 64 rounds, you'll not be interested to have sex. And Prabhupada didn't really say we should chant 64 rounds before sex. He said 50.
50 is the balance.
Even at 50, you have to start maybe from 12 o'clock and all those things, because the sex hours has to be conducted at about 5 during the Brahma Muhurta hours. So, yeah, I know what you're saying. I subscribe to it. A number of people, they make these claims. Yeah, but then it's like someone says, I've been chanting, I gave my life to Krishna all this time, and yet, I was agitated and I went to rape this girl. Why did Krishna do this to me? You're chanting, you will not go and rape any girl. You're chanting properly, you will not go and rape any man. It's not just girls that are being raped. Girls also can rape men. Oh yeah. Oh yes. You can Google on the web. So but then, the whole idea is that we have an opportunity to serve Krishna, to serve the devotees. Yeah. Everything is dicey in the material world. But if we are prayerful in our service, it's like, okay, another example. Two pujaris may come to perform service to their lordship. They don't get the same result. The same puja they did, the same paraphernalia, they don't get the same results. What is the difference? The consciousness. So yeah, just to chant mechanically and go to have the sex, if you chant 100 rounds mechanically, inattentively, we still may not be so fortunate to invoke a child of high-profile Krishna consciousness. So it's the love and devotion that really matters here.
One example I heard, or I think it makes sense, is that like death. Like for death, sometimes people think, okay, just before death, I'll think about Krishna.
One professor told me that.
Yeah, I just have to think at the moment of death, so just put an alarm clock, just before death. So it's the same with creating a child. The whole preparation to it is not just this 50 rounds before, but how you live generally.
That's also there. Yeah, I remember one professor, when I joined the movement, he was a friend to the temple president. He used to take me out on Sankirtan on the weekends. I go to spend at the temple. And then he saw the way I was preaching, and he was telling me I should become a full-time devotee, that I would do very nicely. And for him, he cannot become a full-time because he has a lot of affection for his mother, and besides, he knows the science of death. At the time of death, he has to remember Krishna. He knows that, so he'll be able to do that. So what you're saying, yeah? People have this type of philosophy that, I don't need to do anything. I know the science to remember Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.